Mr. President.
Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to point out these are just texts that allow us to do certain motions here, and I don't need this for the moment. I want to speak to you and honestly speak to my Democrat colleagues from the heart. We have a situation in America today in which 260,000 families are without a paycheck. This fiscal year, they have been without a paycheck for more than half of this year. Now, in the private sector, you look at it and say, well, why would you not pay somebody? Typically, it's because they didn't do a good job, they didn't show up for work, they didn't punch in properly. And all those things are very litigated, by the way. Meaning in a private business, if you don't pay somebody what they're entitled to make, you actually get something called a wage and hour lawsuit against you. And yet, the third time this 6 months, this body that's charged with a simple job, which is the power of the purse to appropriate money to fund the government, we have failed. And I get the political posturing. That side of the aisle would say it's our fault. This side of the aisle would say it's your fault. I can tell you, Mr. President, who unequivocally it's not their fault. And that's the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security who wake up every day, they go to work, they do their job. And by the way, sometimes, and you've been there, Mr. President, in your state, Missouri, St. Louis, you've seen them firsthand. Members of Border Patrol, Customs, Immigration Enforcement, CISA, you've seen them. We see their work. What should we, as the body here, tell those families? In fact, there's an expression that says, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. And there's lots of 5-year-olds affected. Grandkids, kids, siblings that are wondering why they can't go to camp because their mom or dad wasn't able to write a check. I don't know what I would say if I were a dad. You're a dad. You're a great dad, actually. I've seen you with your daughter. What do you say to her if you didn't have money to pay the bills, but you did everything right? So one thing I think would help bring us to the negotiation table is for us to get together and say, look, I'll use the same expression I used the other day. Let's eat our own dog food. If we're okay and we find it acceptable for 260,000 American families to go without pay, then isn't it reasonable for us to say that this body, and this body alone, the United States Senate, who makes 4 or 5 times as much as they do, for us to go without pay, that our pay be withheld? Now, I'll be honest, I think our pay should be docked, honestly, because that's what would happen in a private sector. We're not going to do that. I'm just saying hold our pay. And by the way, this is not a bill that I'm proposing. It's not a law. It's just a proclamation that says every senator here, all 100 of us, can go to the clerk's office and say, you know what? We can blame whomever we want to blame, but you know what? I'm going to be shared pain here. Hold my paycheck until we do our job. What does doing our job mean? And I look at the minority whip. I've gotten to know. I didn't know you before I came to D.C. I think you're a good man, actually. I've had the chance to interact with you in different ways, and I say, you know, this is a guy who's a serious guy, and he cares. And I know you deeply care about this immigration issue. I remember you telling a story about how you have your dad, or I think it was your dad's naturalization paper in your office. And that resonated with me because I have my naturalization paper on my office. So I know you care. You're a man of good integrity. And what I'm asking that we do is just be able to look ourselves in the mirror every morning when we, to comply with Senate rules, put on a jacket, put on a tie, come to work, just say, just hold our checks. Just because you know what we should do? why don't we just get in a room and hash this out? The way this negotiation has happened is nothing like I've ever experienced in my life. There's a conversation here, conversation there, conversation there, a conversation all over the place. We're in 17 different places. Why don't we just get together and deputize one or two people on your side, deputize one or two people on our side, and let's just get this done. Because I think all of us, I actually hope that we have the moral character in our heart to say it's just wrong not to pay 260,000 people. And look, let me just say this. If Renee Good or Alex Preddy were my children, I'd be horrified. Totally. What happened was terrible, terrible, tragedy. 2 Americans lost their lives. But it's not the fault of the 260,000 people who were just following orders. The vast majority of the people who weren't even there. There's families that never even been to Minnesota. Again, explain it to me like a 5-year-old. You have some customs. I've been to your airport, by the way, in O'Hare. Oh my gosh, that's an airport. That's a big one. And you're a TSA worker there, and you're a customs person there because lots of international flights. They go home and say, Dad, did you get your paycheck yet? Deposit's due for Disney World. Been planning this trip my whole life. No, son, the United States Senate hasn't done that yet. It's not right. Just not right. So I will make my first motion. And I don't know how persuasive I am. I'm going to guess that I wasn't very persuasive. But I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of calendar number 296, as res 526. Further, that the resolution be agreed to and the motion to reconsider be considered made upon the table. And what this means is that our checks, Mr. President, get held back. We'll get the money eventually, like DHS employees do, until we come to a resolution of this national disaster.
Reserving the right to object.
Senator from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd say to my colleague from Ohio, I believe you're sincere. I believe you want to find a solution. I share that feeling. There is a provision in this which I'm not sure that you're aware of. It's very important. It's at the end of the second page, and it says about the effective date of this. This section shall apply on and after the date of the regularly scheduled general election for federal office held in November 2026. I don't want to wait until November, and I think it's an approach which puts that date in play really suggests that we're asking even greater sacrifice of the people who are being disadvantaged. I will just tell you that 8 times now we have brought to the floor a provision which would pay TSA, Coast Guard, would pay all the divisions of the Department of Homeland Security except for the ICE and enforcement provisions. We can agree to that, and I believe the senator from Oregon, Senator Merkley, is going to offer that. You've got to. Oh, sure, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you. And again, I really do, this is totally sincere. I think you're a good man. I really do. I probably shouldn't, I'm not probably supposed to say that, but I do believe it. Would you consider modifying the resolution to take that piece out, just make it clear, like just the paychecks while we're here, whatever the wording, that you and I sit down and we technically fix that wording. So it basically says, during this period of time while DHS is not being funded, could we just make that amendment and technical fix? This is not my bill, it's Senator Kennedy's bill, but would we be willing to do that? Because I don't want this to fall on a technicality.
At this point, I'm going to object, and we can discuss many of the things which you brought up today. But I would just tell you, you'll have your chance within an hour to vote for Jeff Merkley's provision, which will pay everybody working for TSA right now. Yep. So until you get that chance, and I hope you vote the right way, I object.
Well, I appreciate
the objection is heard.
I appreciate the senator from Illinois and his point of view. I will ask Senator Kennedy to make those modifications, and we'll come back out and fix it. But I appreciate, again, your willingness to engage in this conversation. So let me offer us another proposal, just a little bit different proposal. I think we can all agree that our job is, since we're getting paid, we should do it, is to work hard here and stay through whatever it takes. By the way, I would be willing to stay this weekend. I was here all last weekend. I'll stay through Easter. I'll stay through 4th of July. Whatever period of time it takes until we release the paychecks of 260,000 Americans. So what I would like my Democrat colleagues to consider is to fund all of DHS, every single part of it, 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks. We don't leave for Easter break. We spend every single moment together. Since we don't have planned meetings Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the next 2 weeks. Maybe we had codels and trips and family vacations, but I have a great and understanding wife. I'm sure Democrat colleagues have the same thing, an understanding family. You have to do this job. And we stay here until we just get together and say, hey, look, in a 2 week period of time, we can get there. And I think there's been some negotiations that said, hey, maybe we can address this. The White House has come to the table unlike at any time I've ever seen. They've offered to codify tactics. And I know, Mr. President, you personally are concerned about that because you know a lot about law enforcement. You're the Attorney General of your state. And you know that if you put tactics into legislation, there's a lot of unintended consequences. You could have law enforcement breaking the law when in reality, any of us would say, oh, actually, they're doing the right thing. There's a judgment call. You can't be that granular. Things have to be reasonable. So I think we can work out that language. Just 2 weeks. But here's what this resolution does, Mr. President. If my Democrat colleagues, all they have to do is stay silent. Think about the power. If my Democrat colleagues do not say a word, I don't know how long the parliamentarian will wait there. I'm hoping it's like 7 seconds will be the number, right? So she hears nothing for 7 seconds. For 7 seconds. Think about this, for 7 seconds, silence. 260,000 people get to go home tonight and tell their kids, their spouses, their brothers or sisters, or mom or dad, I'm getting paid. They're retroactively paying me. They get paid for the next 2 weeks. Nothing's gonna change. The world will still be here in 2 weeks. Politics will still exist in 2 weeks. We can beat the, what out of each other for the next 2 weeks, but we got 260,000 families that get to go home and just, have you ever been in a situation, Mr. President, where you just, and you feel like the world is better again? 260,000 people for 7 seconds or less, maybe say 3 seconds, just silence. So I hope that we can get there. And by the way, just to be crystal clear, because what I heard from the minority whip was that my colleague from Oregon was going to offer to fund TSA. This does that. This does that. This will fund every single TSA worker in America. 3 seconds of silence gets every TSA worker paid, gets every Coast Guard person paid, gets every CISA person paid, gets every FEMA person paid, gets every customs person, gets every Border Patrol person paid. 3 seconds of silence. 2 weeks. Put the burden on us. You won't take away our paychecks. You didn't agree to that. Will you agree to not object, to just say, let's pay TSA workers right now? By the way, I think if there's a chance that C-SPAN 2 is on live at the airports and they saw you, Mr. President, say, hearing no objection, done. Americans would cheer at airports all over America right now. St. Louis, Portland, Cleveland, Miami, Atlanta for sure. Would cheer, my God. TSA workers are going to get paid. Come back to work. We're so sorry. And we're going to spend 2 weeks. That's it, 2 weeks. Not 2 years, not 2 months, 2 weeks. To sit down like grown men and women and do our jobs that pays us $175,000 a year, plus. So I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of calendar number 156, H.R. 4553. I further ask that the substitute amendment at the desk be considered and agreed to, the bill as amended be considered, read a third time and passed, and that the motions to reconsider be considered and laid upon the table. The timing will start now.
Is there an objection?
Reserving the right to object.
Senator from Oregon.
I appreciate that my colleague from Ohio has come to the floor and said, wouldn't it be great if we ensure that a paycheck is written for 2 weeks? I have a better idea. We have far more than 2 weeks left in this particular year. The funding year ends at the end of September. So we are talking about something closer to 26 weeks. And while there might be a cheer for 2 weeks, there'd also be a lot of dread. And people across the nation would be going, so the proposal is to fund for 2 weeks while the majority sends us out for a 2-week break.
Was Senator you for a question?
Not till I finish my remarks, but thank you. And so there are going to be 2 proposals by my colleague. And in response to one, I'm going to suggest that we free TSA as a hostage. TSA right now, we are seeing hundreds of TSA agents quit because they're not being paid. We've seen thousands call in and say, I'm not available for work today, probably sick from the stress of not receiving paychecks. We can alleviate that completely for the rest of this entire year, this entire fiscal year, with the proposal I'll put forward in a moment. And then, if my colleague has another proposal, well, we'll consider that as well. But I'll probably put forward a suggestion we do all 26 weeks for TSA and FEMA and the Coast Guard and cybersecurity. See, the debate where push has come to shove is over ICE and CBP. And it's because of the rules engagement under which they've acted have been so extraordinarily aggressive, terrorizing our communities. So the conversation still remains and is underway about ICE and CBP and the reforms.
Will my colleague yield for a question?
When I'm done with my remarks. And so the key here is let's release these hostages. Because TSA is being held a hostage by my colleagues across the aisle, and FEMA workers are being held as a hostage
Point of order of the
across the aisle.
parliamentarian. I would ask my colleague to remember Rule 19, in which you're analogizing me to a hostage taker. I find that offensive, and I think in violation of Rule 19.
I will remind everyone that no senator in debate shall directly or indirectly, by any form of words, impute another senator or to other senators any conduct or motive unworthy or unbecoming a senator.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Madam President. And so I'll just put forward the fact, not imputing anyone, just the fact that 9 times members of this body have come to the floor and asked unanimous consent to fund TSA. And an additional 12 times, members of this body have come to the floor and asked that we fund all 4 of those agencies, the Coast Guard and FEMA and cybersecurity and TSA. So let's not continue to hold these hostages. And TSA right now is the one we're completely focused on.
Again, Madam President, you've warned the senator from Oregon. He's repeated the exact same statement. I believe Rule 19 does not allow him to continue speaking if he's violating that standard.
The chair does not find the statement by the senator to be in the context that you're taking it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just cut to the chase here. Just as my colleagues' heartfelt desire to get those paychecks written, so I too want to see them written. And at the moment, we see the TSA agents in high stress. Our airports are causing stress for people out through the nation. So let's get that piece done right here, right now, in this moment. And therefore, I'd ask the senator to modify your request. So the Senate instead proceeds to immediate consideration of calendar item number 362, Senate Bill 4127, that the bill, which funds TSA, be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Does the senator so modify his request?
Thank you, Madam President. So the questions I was hoping that you would answer so they would be more fresh in your mind were, are you only suggesting right now, just to be crystal clear, there's a lot of people's lives at stake here, by the way. Let me just clarify that a 2-week continuing resolution would pay people retroactively. See, they're owed almost 40 days of pay. So this would pay them back the money we've taken from them for the last 40 days. Give us 2 weeks, not 2 weeks of pay. I just want to make sure you understood, because maybe I misspoke. I want to make sure Senator from Oregon didn't misunderstand what I said. I was suggesting that we fund DHS, which retroactively pays 260,000 people, give us 2 weeks to get a solution, and never, ever do this to a single American family again. It's a disgrace that we're doing this. And I'm not imputing I'm imputing all of us. That we never do this. We never allow a hardworking American to go without paycheck because of our politics. I just want to make certain that the senator understood that. I also want to make certain that I heard the senator properly, because I don't think his speech matched the resolution. So this is a simple yes or no question. If you don't mind, just give me a yes or no. If you want to, you don't have to. I have the floor, but it's up to you if you want to answer yes or no. But I'm going to frame it as a very simple yes or no question. Are you suggesting that we not also fund FEMA?
Madam President, may I respond to my colleagues' questions?
The senator is recognized.
Thank you. To his first question, in which he sought to clarify that his proposal is retroactive.
Madam President, I was yielding for a yes or no answer.
The chair understands.
Are you suggesting that we not also fund the Federal Emergency Management Agency? Are you suggesting that we not do that? Yes or no? What is your response?
Madam President, speaking to my colleague through the chair in the ancient Senate tradition, the answer to that is I already pointed out that I'm going to offer 2 proposals. One, that we fully fund TSA, and we do it not for 2 weeks, but we do it for the balance of this year through September 30th.
Got it. Thank you. You've answered my question.
No, and second,
I have the floor.
Proposal.
The senator from Ohio has the floor.
I have the floor. Thank you for the point of order.
I believe I'm answering your question. I think I have the floor answering your question.
The senator from Oregon.
The senator from Ohio has the floor.
Please, let's maintain decorum here. I think the American people deserve public officials who are receiving paychecks while they're not to have semblance of decorum in class with each other, and I hope that I've displayed that thus far. Here's what's being proposed, just to be crystal clear, Madam President, because this gets very fuzzy. I've proposed a 2-week continuing resolution that would retroactively pay every DHS employee, give us 2 weeks to negotiate. And what my colleague from Oregon, whether intentional or not, what he's proposing in this modification request, I don't have a crystal ball or a time machine. I have no idea what you're going to propose later. God knows what that is. I have no idea. But in this proposal, it's saying only fund the Transportation Safety Agency. I don't understand why we wouldn't take the opportunity. So I'm going to ask my colleague back, would you consider, in addition to funding TSA, permanently for the rest of the fiscal year? I love that, by the way. Let's do that. Absolutely. Can I have an amen? But in addition, fund the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Seems like pretty good agency to fund. These are the men and women that respond to disasters. You've been there, Madam President, when they responded to disasters in your state of Iowa, right? I mean, you probably go there and go, these people are unbelievable. Let's fund them. Let's pay them. By the way, let's pay them and say thank you. Then we look at cybersecurity, an agency called CISA. We love acronyms here. The Cybersecurity Agency, what do? They make sure that we don't have threats. We're in a major conflict with Iran. 60, 70% of them aren't working. Would you also consider funding that? Seems like a good agency. Secret Service. Really important agency. They keep the President of the United States safe. And his threat level right now, you've been to the White House, Madam President, my God. The threat level against the President of the United States right now is at a peak. We're about to do FIFA, the soccer championship, although the F does stand for football, which is what we call it, Columbia, but we call it soccer here. We're going to need Secret Service there. How about Customs? Should we not fund Customs? What's their job? Their job is to inspect packages coming in from other countries, process visitors to your state, my state. Why don't we fund them? Let's go through here this chart. The Department of Homeland Security, USCIS. Oh, another acronym. What do? They take people like me who applied to be a U.S. citizen and process my legal immigration status. Seems like I love this agency. I thank them every day because they do a good job. 3,300 people. Can we also agree to fund them? How about this group? This group, Madam President, look at the name of this agency, the Biological and Nuclear Threat Prevention Agency. Can I have an amen to fund that agency for the rest of the year and never, ever, ever gamble with that threat? Now let's talk about this agency here. Homeland, you can't read that, but Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent. These are like, if you think of the enforcement removal officers as the police officers, these guys are like the detectives. These are the guys that chase down the worst of the worst criminals, the guys that machete people's heads off, child traffickers, transnational gangs. These guys are going without a paycheck for the last 40 days. And they're still at the job, chasing the worst of the worst. Would anybody here like to do that job? Would any of you like to put this little badge on and go chase Pablo Escobar on steroids? Because that's what they're doing. And then let's look at this agency down here. We talked about it, Customs and Border Patrol. I don't know, I'm sure my Senate colleague has been here a lot longer than I have. That's true about most of the people here. I'm sure he's familiar with Customs. You know, I'm a decently simple guy. So, you know, those are the blue uniform guys. You know, you come in from traveling and can I see your passport, anything to declare, right? Do we not want them on the job? We don't want Customs on the job? And then Border Patrol agents, I don't just think we should pay Border Patrol agents for the rest of the fiscal year. I think we should give those guys a massive bonus. They've cut border encounters in this country by 98%. So to my colleague, to summarize it all, we can skip a step. We're going to skip a step. Would you be willing to modify your proposal to adopt instead calendar number 311, HR 7147, the DHS Collins Amendment? Sounds very fancy, doesn't it, Madam President? It funds all of that stuff. I've listened to speeches for the last 40 days, and my colleagues have come out, let's fund this agency, let's fund this agency, let's fund this agency. I'm agreeing with them. I want them to accept yes for an answer. I want them to say yes, let's do it. Let's fund all of DHS, except for the one agency that's not on there, which is the enforcement removal operations. So would you, to my colleague from Oregon, who said you want to fund all these things, your words, not mine, for the rest of the fiscal year, plus retro pay, would you be willing to change your amendment to my proposal and instead substitute all of this with calendar number 311, HR 7147, the DHS Collins Amendment? The parliamentarian, is he able to respond to that, or do you need me to read this formal text here?
Would the senator modify his request for modification?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Has my colleague from Ohio objected to funding TSA for the rest of the year?
Madam President, I think I have the floor. You know what? English is my second language, so I sometimes speak too fast and maybe don't use the right language. So let me just be crystal clear again. I'm suggesting that we fund TSA for the rest of the fiscal year, retroactively pay every worker, do that for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, do that for CISA, do that for Secret Service, do that for Customs, do that for Border Patrol, do that for Homeland Investigations, do it for USCIS. We love these guys. And do it for, definitely love these guys, the Biological Nuclear Threat Prevention Agency. That's, to be crystal clear, what I'm saying. So to answer your question, does that include TSA? Yes, it does include TSA. This would fund TSA for the rest of the fiscal year.
Madam Chair, has the colleague from Ohio objected to funding
Will the senator
TSA for balance?
suspend? The senator from Ohio renewed his original request.
Is there objection?
Is there objection to that request?
His objection is heard.
Is there objection to the original request?
Is there objection to the original request from the senator from Ohio,
Well, Madam Chair, yes,
which he just renewed?
reserving the right to object. I propose we fund TSA for the rest of the year. My colleague, as I understand it, has refused to agree to that. And therefore, he's essentially objected, but he's asked for a modification. I am happy to, at this very moment, propose that we go to a request which funds FEMA and the Coast Guard and cybersecurity and TSA, essentially everything except ICE and CBP, and the other agencies are fee-funded. I'm happy to go to that proposal if my colleague is willing to fund FEMA and Coast Guard and cybersecurity. But I think he's been well aware that he keeps putting a poison pill in here. He keeps asking for Customs and Border Protection to be funded without modifying how they're behaving across the nation. And he keeps asking for ICE to be funded without modifying their actions where they're operating like a secret police. That is why negotiations are underway with the White House over that issue. So let's stop holding FEMA and Coast Guard and cybersecurity and TSA hostage. And I'm happy to put forward a proposal right now that would fund all four of those agencies for the balance of this year.
Senator from Ohio.
Says, I think we have a failure to communicate. So let me try one last swing here to make certain that I make it crystal clear. By the way, I absolutely mean this sincerely, absolutely total respect. I know that my Senate colleague from Oregon knows that DHS is more than 4 agencies. I know he knows that. So what I just want to clarify is, in your modification to my modification, yes or no, are you including USCIS?
Madam Chair, I think my colleague can check and see that that is a fee-funded organization.
So you do not want to fund USCIS?
Madam Chair, I think if my colleague checks, he'll find that USCIS is funded through fees. And let me explain what a fee is. A fee is when
Madam President,
Madam Chair, I think I should explain. The appropriation for my colleague from Ohio, which he doesn't understand how it's funded.
Senator from Ohio has the floor.
He answered my question. I was 5 when I learned where the fee was. So the answer to that question is not including USCIS, which is odd because they do have an appropriations line in the appropriations bill, by the way. So just the answer to that question is no. So no, here's what's ironic. My colleague from Oregon, Madam President, you can't even make this up, wants to not fund the people who are in charge of defending our borders and deporting criminal aliens, but does not want to provide funding for the agency that brings people here legally. Wow, that's a moment. So let's go to this next one.
No CPP.
Will you agree to fund
Democratic position? No.
the Homeland Investigations Unit? In your proposal, does it include funding for HSI? Yes or no?
Madam President, my colleague is engaged in a dialogue here that I'd be happy to resume at another moment. He's rejected both my proposal to fund TSA. He's rejected my proposal to fund FEMA and cybersecurity and TSA and the Coast Guard. At this very moment, there is a ceremony going on to honor our police officers who protected this Capitol on October 6th. And that is to honor a plaque that has been posted that Senate, in a bipartisan way, agreed to have put up when it was being hidden by the Speaker of the House in some closet. And so I understand the points you are making. I think you understand the points I'm making. I have countered your proposal with a proposal to fund TSA for the balance of the year. I countered your proposal to fund everything in but ICE and CBP. And although you've never said the words, I object, I understand you're objecting through your dialogue. And if I misunderstand that, please say now that you agree to my proposals, and we will be done with this conversation. But I really think it'd be good for both of us in a bipartisan way to go down and honor the officers that protected the Capitol.
All right, so just to be crystal clear, because again, this is getting a little deeply ambiguous, is the senator from Oregon suggesting that we fund the entirety of the Department of Homeland Security, everything, the entirety of Homeland Security, with the exception of Customs, the people who inspect packages, the people who greet people at Portland International Airport, and Border Patrol, and Homeland Investigations and Enforcement Removal of Operations. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, my understanding is the second proposal I put forward, my understanding is the second proposal funds everything but ICE and CBP, is my understanding of the Murray bill.
Does the senator from Ohio agree to that modification?
I would agree to one. We're almost there, by the way. This is actually very important. Like, we're making a lot of progress here. And I think the plaque will be there for a long, long time. So here's where we're at. Just for recap, we used to have 10 commandments in my company. We used to have commandment number 11 was thou shalt recap. So let's just recap where we are. Senator from Oregon, on behalf of the Democrat Party, is saying that he's willing to do right now, fund the entirety of the Department of Homeland Security, everything, every single agency of the Department of Homeland Security, but is carving out the Customs and Border Patrol Division and the entirety of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which includes these guys, the guys who chase down bad guys. So I would ask that you take a look at the Collins Amendment, HR 7147, calendar number 311. Let's include the guys that chase the really bad guys. I'll agree to your proposal. If you include the guys who chase the really bad guys, Homeland Security investigations, and include the guys who greet people at your airport. Like, what you're suggesting is don't pay the guys that screen people who are leaving. You want to pay them, but don't pay the people who are taking care of the people coming back in. Like, boop, boop, boop. This is backwards land. Let's fund everybody at the airport. So why wouldn't we fund Customs? In fact, why wouldn't we fund Customs, the guys in the blue? If you have an issue with Border Patrol, the guys in their green jackets, is that what you're saying, that you would agree to fund everybody but Border Patrol and Enforcement Removal Operations? Because I think we're super close. We can finish this dialogue and bring peace and tranquility to 260,000 families. Are you willing to do that? Was the Senator of Oregon willing to modify that one little tweak just in between? We're there saying, hey, let's include HSI, let's include the guys that patrolling our border, let's include the Customs guys. Or are you saying, no, if we pay people at the airport who receive visitors from foreign countries, and the people who guard our border, who are doing an amazing job, and the people who are chasing bad guys. Because you won't fund those three things, I'm saying, well, good. We'll put enforcement removal operations on the side. By the way, $5 billion haircut to this budget. Why don't we just do that? The senator from Oregon, will you accept that? Let's get this done.
Okay.
Make the American people very happy and have glorious news for a lot of American families. Look, think of the power you have right now. The power you have right now to feed 254,000 American families by the words that are going to come out of your mouth. I would ask all of us to have the humility to understand how powerful it is, your next words, because your next words will provide the paycheck for 254,000 American families. Please, I beg you, please, please do the compassionate thing, and then we'll work on ERO later.
Madam Chair, is that a question?
Yes.
I'd be happy to answer the question. Twice when I've answered questions, my colleague has reclaimed the floor in the middle of it. Do you intend to actually let me answer the question this time? He's not responding,
yeah, of
which
course.
means he's reserving the right to object when I get partway into the explanation to his question. But let's be clear. Because of the sequence of events in which I proposed 2 modifications and he rejected 2 modifications, he rejected and objected to paying through the end of September the TSA. And then I proposed that we fund everything except for CBP and for ICE, because those are the 2 issues under negotiation with the president. And he has again objected to, and he's proposing a 2-week extension, and then people don't get paid again. So we're going to bring this to a close because essentially my colleague has asked me to participate in this debate, and it was very clever, and I've willingly done so. But I think 26 weeks is a whole lot better than 2 weeks. And so since my colleague objected to paying TSA, objected to paying everyone in Homeland Security except for ICE and CBP because that's under negotiation with the House and with the President, I have objected to his 2-week extension. Thank you, Madam President.
Objection is heard.
All right, let's just spend 60 more seconds here to recap what we got. So my colleague from Oregon, representing the Democrats, because we gave him a lot of time to kind of figure out how to come here, has said that what the position of the Democrat Party today is, today's position, different Saturday, by the way, different Sunday, by the way, different Monday morning, in which the minority leader went on Joe Scarborough and said that it was President Trump who rejected the idea to fund all of DHS except for enforcement removal operations. And then, of course, I think President Trump was maybe a genius there, because maybe by him saying no on Sunday, it made the Democrats say yes. And then he said, yes on Monday evening. Then Democrats had to go back to no. Kind of crazy. What we are doing is not going to fund for the rest of the fiscal year the people who keep our country safe because they want to defund the people whose job it is to keep our border secure and to deport people who broke into our country illegally, including murderers, rapists, transnational organizations. They do not want to fund those agencies. I just want that to settle in here and point out to you that what I proposed today, Madam President, you voted yes. 53 Republicans and 1 courageous Democrat. 54 voted for that. All it would take is 6 Democrats and 254,000 people would get their paycheck. It's a sad day. I will mark the time, 5:45 p.m. A sad day for the United States Senate, Madam President. And with that, I yield the floor.